Going to the gym can be discouraging, especially if you're putting in the work but barely seeing changes. But with Tonal, you can actually see your progress with every workout. Tonal provides the convenience of a full gym and the expertise of a personal trainer anytime at home with one sleek system. Designed to reduce your mental load, Tonal is the ultimate strength training system, helping you focus less on workout planning and more on getting results. No more second-guessing your technique. Tonal gives you real-time coaching cues to dial in your form and help you lift safely and effectively. After a quick assessment, Tonal sets the optimal weight for every move and adjusts in 1 pound increments as you get stronger, so you're always challenged. Tonal lets you choose from a variety of expert-led workouts, from strength to arrow hit to yoga and mobility to keep you coming back for more. For a limited time, go to Tonal.com to get $500 off your Tonal purchase, plus a free 4-year warranty. That's Tonal.com for $500 off, plus a free 4-year warranty. Tonal.com.
This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm here with my co-host, the good captain.
Welcome, WABC listeners and YouTube viewers. Today's guest has a very heart-wrenching story, and you'll be very moved by it.
So today's guest is Dan DeLaura.
Correct.
Dan DeLaura is a survivor of the Shield. His twin brother, John, of Emergency Service Truck Number 2,
correct,
who it turns out in Manhattan North, near the 26th Precinct, was killed on 9/11. Okay, so Dan is here to talk about that, and Dan, welcome, and we're very honored to have you here.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to the opportunity about telling my story about what I've been doing, where I've been, and where we're headed with this. And as you said, my brother John was my fraternal twin. He was counting his paychecks to retirement. He was on for 19 years, and he was in 14 years in Truck 2. Worked on many high-profile rescues in Manhattan North.
So, Dan, could you tell our audience a little bit about a little bit of your background and your family's background as well?
Well, I'm Irish and Italian. I have the Irish mother and the Italian father.
Perfect.
So I'm a closet Irishman, is what I tell everyone. And that's what my brother was, a closet Irishman. And my father cut slip covers, and my mother worked at the Jewish Home and Hospital for the Aged. We are from Allerton Avenue, Pelham Parkway, up in the Bronx.
Okay.
Catholic, went to St. Lucy's Grammar School, Columbus High School in the Bronx, and Lehman College in the Bronx.
Wow. Now, so you grew up in the Bronx, okay?
Yes, the Bronx.
And then your brother was in the elite unit, ESU Truck Number 2.
Right. John had taken the police test. He was assigned to the 46th Precinct, where he kind of cut his teeth on what goes on in the underworld of the Bronx.
Yeah. So, Dan, why don't you bring us back to the morning of 9/11?
The morning of September 11th, like everyone else, started out as a beautiful day. Someone told me that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. The first thing I did was call Truck 2. No answer. The next thing I did, I called my sister-in-law, Carol. Where's John? He's at work. So I knew that John was down there, and I tried to remain calm and try to hear what was going on. And I could hear the sirens. I worked on 59th Street. I could hear them all going downtown. And what had happened is at 10:28 in the morning, I went to the Blarney Stone on 59th Street, sat down, looked at the television just in time at 10:28 to see the North Tower folding and collapsing into the building. And I got a huge burst of anxiety. Holy John, oh my God, John, oh no. Oh, I got to get out of here. Big burst of anxiety. I go back to my office. My boss says to me, where do you think you're going? And I said to him, my brother just got killed. I have to get out of here. So this was dinner conversation at our house. My wife, Angela, worked down on 42nd Street. I walked around in circles for 2 minutes by my desk, and I said, I'm getting Angela. We had talked about anything happens in the city, get Angela, get out of the city. Ran down to 42nd Street, found myself under the City Corp building, thinking another plane is coming. I got to get away from this building. I go to Madison Avenue. It looks like a Godzilla movie. The traffic is stopped. People are running uptown. I get my wife. She can't run in high heels. We got to stop and buy sneakers. She loves that part of the story. And I get a cab. The cab is taken. I get an Indian cab driver, and the guy is, this is terrible. Who would do such a thing? Oh, my God. I've only been driving a cab for 3 days. Oh, no. So he takes us up. takes us up to City Island, but he turns into Rodman's Neck, which is under total lockdown at a level 5 mobilization. The next thing I know, I'm looking down the barrel of a Ruger Mini 14, the same exact gun that John used for perp searches and sniper. Nickel barrel, V-sight, and I'm looking right down. I jump on my wife. They're going to turn us into Swiss cheese. This is terrible. I've only been driving a cab for 3 days. So he drops us off. I call my mother, and my mother says to me, "We lost John." I said, "Yeah, Ma, I know." So we waited to turn the television on. I could see the Trade Center from City Island where I live. I could see the smoke coming out of it. And we waited all day. I made a call to my friend Father Peter at Holy Cross Church in Midtown Manhattan. Yep. Didn't get him. At 11 o'clock at night, they called us and said, "John's missing. We're sending a car for you." My parents thought we were going to the morgue to identify a body. They took us into police headquarters, and right at the door waiting for me was Father Peter. I didn't know that he was a friend of Jack Maples and that he had done some work with the police department. And that's when those few days that we met all the other family members at the police department, started to bring them in one at a time. So there were a lot of people, hundreds of people in police headquarters the night of September 11th, cops with injuries coming in, the stench of the smoke, and we basically camped out there borrowing people's cell phones, walking the halls, bumming cigarettes from Father Peter, and it turned into a vigil, waiting for word, and little by little, we started to sneak down to see what was going on down at the site.
Father Peter, Holy Cross. Did you know? Oh, I knew Father Peter. Yes, I did. Oh, really?
He's a great guy.
Oh, wow. Wow, yeah, great. He was a singer, He could sing. He used to sing Mac the Knife in German.
Right? We have to talk about Father Peter. God rest his soul. I love that guy.
Yeah, he was great. I know him through the neighborhood, and I also know him. He used to come to our police events, and he would sing Mac the Knife in German.
So I had a share house with him in the Hamptons.
Oh, great. Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah,
we have to talk later. Absolutely. Absolutely. Captain?
What did the police department do for you and your families after
they treated us like royalty is what they did. Anything we needed, anything we wanted, and we didn't really need anything. They provided us with information. Joe Dunn would come in every now and then and tell us what happened. And Joe Dunn was in a cast, and he was hobbling around from, I think he had surgery. And they kept us informed. And Chief O'Neill, the head of family unit, in my world, I have a lot of people masquerading as corporate professionals, the boss's buddy. This guy I saw was a real administrator, and I saw him in a circle with 20 guys around him. You're going to do this, you're going to do this. I said, holy God, this guy's a real manager, not like the people that I know. And he was, but he was with an iron fist, and everybody started to, we wanted to go down there, and they were they were trying to get around him, but no, you're not getting around Chief O'Neill. So they took care of us very well. And to this day, I mean, they treat us like royalty. I'm not worthy, and I have to defer now to the other line of duty deaths. That night, we met the Vigiano family. We met the Driscoll family. As people were coming in, this was not my job. This is my brother's job. All of these people coming in, and I could see right away, this NYPD, very professional organization. That's why they call it the greatest police department in the world. Vast, and they have a very deep bench when it comes to people. All kinds of skills, all kinds of knowledges, just amazing group of people. And I'm proud that my brother was one of them.
Yeah, thank you.
Why don't you tell our audience about what emergency service does so they get a background? Many of our listeners are not police people.
Well, emergency service, like in other cities, the fire department does what they do. But in New York City, the adage is that when a cop needs a cop, when the public needs they call a cop. When a cop needs a cop, they call ESU. And they are trained in high-rise rescue. They are trained in ballistics, tactics. They're the ones that are going to go in and get a shooter or somebody holding hostage. Every situation that they encounter is dangerous. And my brother was very well trained. Right before 9/11, he had rappelled off the 59th Street Bridge to rescue bridge painters. And he told me the story. He dropped in singing, "It's a small world after all." Okay, buddy, we're going to get you out of here. He was also an expert on the tramway at Roosevelt Island. And, of course, when he passed away and the tramway got stuck, It was like, oh, I wish John was here.
God.
So, he ran the robot, the RMI, the Remote Mobile Investigator.
I remember that robot. I was when they first came out. I attended a training session. It talked.
Yeah.
It's true, Dan. Just want to jump in here. When I was in the academy in 1985, ESU came in to speak to us, as rookies.
Yeah.
Tell us what they do, what they're all about. And basically, what you just said, they said, when the public needs help, they call you, NYPD police officer. But when you need help on the street, you call us, ESU, and we respond.
I can tell you that I never, as a New York City resident, I never heard this term professional police officer. Once I got around these guys, I heard the term professional police officer. The public thinks that, that these people are just, to be spit at, thrown at, questioned, and whatever. But these are professionals, and they are trained professionally.
True.
What about there were many funerals and memorials?
Yes, that's, it's not.
Talk about that.
I myself, from September until December, went to probably 45 to 50 wakes, funerals, and memorials. On November 10th, we had our memorial up at Pearl River. About 6,000 people came, and I eulogized my brother. It was the most difficult thing I ever had to do. But I used the Boy Scout law. We were in the Scouts: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, brave, clean, and reverent. And with each one, I gave a little story about John and how he fit into that. And then the remarkable story is afterwards, a gentleman comes up to me, couldn't look me in the eye with his whole entire family, and he says, "Mr. Delara, I just want you to know, if it weren't for your brother, I would not be standing here." And he introduces himself as Jimmy Hall, patrolman, Port Authority Police. He was over at the bus terminal checking truck registrations. They responded down to the Trade Center. Everyone that he went with was killed. He got separated from his people, and my brother and Mike Curtin ran into him on the 9th floor with an overweight aide. He was trying to hustle this man out of the building to save his life. John and Mike Curtin came running down the stairs. And when I talked to Jimmy today, and he's a very good friend, we talk about, why did they stop? And Jimmy says they stopped because they saw my uniform. They saw that I was a cop. They saw that I was a cop that needed help. And they hustled Mr. Rappa, who was a Port Authority employee, out of the building, and Jimmy went first. A fireman by the name of Billy Spade was also there that went ahead, and John and Mike were at the end. And Jimmy told me that, he said, "Mr. Delara, I just want you to know, your brother was 100 yards behind me, and I don't know what happened, but he wasn't really that far behind me." And Jimmy got out, he went to the hospital. Mr. Rappa was also taken to the hospital. And Jimmy gave us, and I think he gave Kathy Vigiano as well, or Helga Curtin, a copy of his report that he turned into the Port Authority when he had to write what happened. And we have that to this day, chronicling what he did. But he's turned into a very good friend. And what I guys told you before, that when the military commission called me to come down to Guantanamo, and I said to my wife, "You want to go?" And she says, "Is there a plug for my hair dryer?" And I said, "No, Angela, we're not doing hair and nails down there." So I said, "Jimmy, why don't you come with me?" And you were the only one out of all those people down there, all those lawyers, all of those people, he was the only one that was there for the collapse, and he survived the collapse.
Wow.
As I recall, if my memory serves me correctly, there were 21 police officers.
23 police officers killed.
23.
But most of them were from emergency service.
14 from emergency service.
So they took a heavy hit that day.
Yes, they did. And, my brother used to say that to me. It's surprised that we didn't lose more of them. And he went to point out that one MAC-10 machine gun can mow down like 5, 6, 7 cops at one time. And so they're very careful about what they do. They take precautions, ballistic shields, cover, tactics. Big thing with tactics. Always, if you go up to Rodman's Neck and you go to the tactical village, you'll see what they're doing there. They built a building there, and they do tactics all day long.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal, and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
We're talking about the captain just brought up in regards to how many police officers we lost that day, which was 23. Okay, but how many since that day? I mean, and the list goes on and on.
This
and
is
on,
this is just terrible. There's hundreds.
Dan, why don't you bring me back to the day that you were notified about they found the remains of
Yes.
John?
It was just around this time, Easter. Easter was early that year. The week before Easter, we were down there. They were getting to the bottom of the pile. They recovered John's remains on April 11, 2002, exactly 7 months to the day. I had been saying the rosary in my pocket, wishing that we were going to find something. John's partner, Lee Hom, had a palm, and he put palms down in the area. And then we got the call the following week after Easter that they had found John's boot with a dog tag, and we went down there. And I remember grateful for Father Romano sitting there talking about heaven, what heaven was like, and being Italian, Father Romano says, "Heaven is a place where you can drink all the wine you want and not get drunk, and eat all the pasta you want and not get fat." I'm saying, wait, that's a great place. How do I get there? All right, I got to be dead. No, I think. So we carried with the greatest police department in the world, Police Commissioner Kelly, Joe Esposito, George Grasso, Patty Pogan, all the guys from ESU. We carried John's remains out, put them on a truck, and took them to Bellevue. Then I took the flag, and with a couple of highway cops, went and gave the flag to my mother up on Allerton Avenue, Pelham Parkway.
And they found your brother's remains approximately 7 months after?
Exactly, 7 months to the day. 7 months to the day. They had found my curtains and John Perry's remains 6 months. So John, what we think is he got hit with something coming off the top of the building. So we recovered what we could recover, and we're thankful because there are so many other families that don't have anything at all. So we're thankful that we made a recovery.
Tell us about the other line of duty families.
There's common denominator with all of these families. They are all great people. They're all stand-up people. They're all quality people. Just the ones that my brother were killed with, all the ESU families, Kathy Vigiano, Helga Curtin, Maggie McDonald, all of them, Carmen Suarez, great people. And they do things to keep their husband's memory alive. And from that little bit of line of duty, in police headquarters, we met Mrs. McDonald, Stephen McDonald. We met all of the other families that had gone before us. Anna Vendetti, whose son was killed. All the other line of duty families were there to console us. And that was really something special, that those families, Margaret Massimillo, they all came out to sit with us, tell what it was like. And to this day, I'm friendly with them. And then what happens after that, I don't think people really have ever done a count of how many line of duty deaths there are, because it happens all the time. The most recent one being Jonathan Diller and his wife, Stephanie Diller, just heartbreaking. And it's the same thing over and over. They're young women, they're in the prime of life, just starting to raise a family, and here they have their whole life upended. Lisa Tizzulo, perfect example. Great, smart, intelligent woman raising two boys. My sister-in-law, Carol, as well. They have to muster up all the courage they have to proceed and go on without their husbands. Pardon me.
You've been very involved in the legal end of this, the 9/11 Commission, Guantanamo Bay.
Right. So,
can you tell us about what's going on and your involvement?
Yeah, I make a distinction here, as I told you before, between the criminal side and the civil side. The criminal side being the high-value detainees that they have down in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And just last week, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed turned 60 years old. That is a mess, a total sham and a total mess, the military commissions. And I'm sorry that I ever got involved with them. They've been playing Army with our trial for how many years now, and we sit there as 9/11 family members like potted plants. I don't even know if sometimes they know we're in there, because they've been arguing over what was done to these guys. And we're in pre-trial hearing here, and these guys have it great. They get to cohabitate together. KSM is the emir of the jail cell over there. They get everything they want. They get their prayer mats. They get The International Red Cross does come in, which is a good thing, because if our guys were held, you want the International Red Cross to come in and check up. But they have a halal bakery there. They cater to their whims. These guys, and they're not worse for wear. I come back, and what I see people in the hospital dying of post-9/11 illness. I volunteered at Calvary Hospital for 5 years after 9/11, and I would go down there and see these guys screaming, I was tortured, and I come back. The people really being tortured are the post-9/11 people, that their 9/11 just happened last year or the year before, and that's just an aberration. It's horrible to see that.
I mean,
and then there's the civil side. The civil side is the lawsuit against the Saudis. The lawsuit against the Saudis that just recently, July 31st, when they started with this phony plea deal that the military commission wants to do, that there was videotape shown down at 500 Pearl Street about a party that was held for Hadi and Mizar, the two hijackers that came in through San Diego. And that in a room full of 20 imams, all from L.A., San Diego, they voice printed two diplomats, Wahhabist diplomats from the embassy in Washington, D.C. So there's a lot of smoke coming from the Saudi Arabian end of this. And they've got gazillions of dollars to delay, push back. And as I said, I think they're trying to throw this out now for the fourth time. And they've been doing it. The prince there talks out of two sides of his mouth. And I don't know if they'll ever admit to it, but there's enough evidence there that, oh, yes, Saudi money. You give Saudi money all over the world, and if it ends up in the hands of extreme people that murder Americans on American soil, you cannot claim diplomatic immunity. So that's where we are with that. So we've got the criminal side, what's going on down in Guantanamo, and the civil side against the government of Saudi Arabia.
So, Dan, where would you say you are now with your
right now,
expectations?
the criminal side down there is just a scam. I went with the military commissions because, being a Bronx resident, I was afraid of jury nullification. Instead, what I got was judicial nullification, that they have these military judges there. The first guy, 6 years, he wrote it right into retirement. And it seems that these judges they're looking for their other promotion. They're looking to do this, they're looking to do that. All of the defense attorneys are still there. The guy that's right now, that is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's attorney, when they ordeered him, asking him his qualifications, it was, I successfully defended Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, against the death penalty, the United States government. So Gary Sowards, who was his attorney, very crafty, defended Ted Kaczynski. And they had no trouble getting rid of Timothy McVeigh, the justice there. But this is just, they have strung this along, and these detainees want it. They are in a detention center down there in Guantanamo. They are not part of the Bureau of Federal Prisons where they would be locked up. So they are together cohabitating. And when the Biden administration came in, all of a sudden this plea deal talk, and I had all of the prosecutors saw what was coming, and they resigned and retired. The new guy comes up to me and says, you'd be trading the death penalty for the certainty of conviction. And I'm like, these guys have been jumping up and down, said they did it. They even wrote a manifest. I don't know if you read that, but I sent that to you. The Shura Council's response to the 9/11 attacks that says basically, yeah, we did it. Yeah, we planned it. Yeah, we financed it. Yeah, we carried it out. And if you let us out of here, we're going to do it again. So the United States military does not use any testimony that was taken under coercive measures. So every time these guys jump up and down and say it, they throw it out. And it's ridiculous at this point where these guys admit to doing it, but the military commissions, their way of doing things is they don't count any of that. So there's evidence there. There are some of the FBI analysts have gotten a chain of evidence of banking records, telephone calls. There's no need for this plea deal. I want a trial. I was promised a death penalty trial. I resent being the face of like a bloodthirsty 9/11 family member, but we were promised a trial. And on 9/11, I didn't believe in the death penalty. After what I saw down there, I still have the stench of my family, friends, and neighbors' flesh in my nose, and I wish everybody else did. These guys, this is going to be a national security issue. where one day Khalid Mohammed is sitting in jail someplace, something happens around the world, and they want to trade for him. And what do we do then? What do we do then? Do we trade this guy out and he becomes the ambassador? This has to be done humanely. It has to be done quickly. And I'm hoping that the Trump administration does something before the Washington, D.C. Court of Appeals sides with either the Secretary of Defense or the judge in the case. And the judge is chomping at the bit, looking to plead these guys out. He wants to retire. He said he was going to retire, but it seems like he's turned into a political shill. He stayed over to facilitate this plea deal. And we don't know what's in the plea deal. It's all redacted. They're not supposed to be leaving Guantanamo. They're not supposed to be cohabitating together. But all of a sudden, they made a deal. They made a deal that if you take the death penalty off the table, we'll allow all of the testimony that was done under coercive measures. And you know what? That's disingenuous. I'm sitting in this courtroom all this time saying that they cannot convict these guys on their admission of guilt. But now you make a deal, the swipe of a pen, and that can all come in. That's why this is a phony, disingenuous.
I have two questions. What is the American Civil Liberties doing there? Why are they there? They're not
They're there to
American.
be sure that the detainees are treated properly.
Yeah, but they're not American citizens.
Well, I don't know if they are. I thought you were talking about the Civil Liberties Union not being American.
No, the detainees.
Maybe they're not either.
Maybe they're not either. Right, exactly. You know what?
That's
Obama,
terrible.
when this first happened, the George Bush, these guys were ready to go. They wanted to be martyrs. We're going to do this for Allah. Boom, boom, boom. President Obama withdraws the charges and gives them Article 3 of the Geneva Convention, which gives them rights. And like I said, the military right about they won't convict them on anything that was any statements. This whole trial has been about suppression statements, but now it's the plea deal. And like I said to you guys before, in the military commissions, there is no such thing as life without parole. They give them years. So I think actuarial, they gave them, I think it was 3,400 years per person, which is kind of ridiculous because that's not life in prison without parole.
So are they being treated as prisoners of war?
Well, certainly not the prisoner of war that you think of. I think that Rush Limbaugh called it Club Med for terrorists. I told the U.S. government, this is not a trial for me. This is a timeshare. I've been there 11 times. I haven't seen anything moving forward.
Another question. Who's paying for their defense attorneys?
There's the John Adams Project. The U.S. government is paying. We are paying for their defense attorneys, and they are billing out at top money per hour. This is a money-making scheme for these people. And I was down there with the Driscoll family, and I kind of went off on them, that this is a money-making scheme for you people. If you want to bring a trial, why don't you just set a trial date? Somebody set a trial date. If you want justice, why don't you, Mr. Sowards, set a trial date for your client? What about you, Judge McCall? Why don't you, instead of entertaining a plea deal, why don't you set a trial date? So we're waiting for a trial date that's never going to come. And now they want us to take this sham trial where these guys plead out. We already know what's going to happen. They're going to get life in prison, and they're going to roll us in there. They're 9/11 victims, people with serious injuries, people with serious physical ailments, psychological, and these guys are going to laugh in our face. And it's going to thumb in the eye to American justice and to victims of terrorism on American soil in New York City. And that's the reason that I stay with this. Not only for my brother John, but for every other working kid in New York that got slaughtered by these guys.
Dan, I know we believe that the NYPD to this day supports all the, all the families from 9/11, the survivors.
They certainly do.
And what is your feeling? Is the city, have they done enough, the state as well as the federal government?
Well, you can't paint every 9/11 family with the same brush. There were groups of families there, if you remember the Fresh Kills Recovery of Remains. They wanted to dig up that whole dump. As far as what I could see, that everybody has done possibly as much as they can I know the NYPD treats us all like royalty. The fire department, too, with their people. I don't know what they do. I know that Joe Dunn had offered the fire department if they wanted to come into police headquarters, but they tend to go to their own firehouses.
Yeah.
And, they only got 9,000 people NYPD's got 35,000 people.
Right.
So there's a numbers different there. The civilians, I know Cantor Fitzgerald, they lost 600 people. They do their own thing. And, that's another thing about, the 9/11, post 9/11 people have whole bodies. The people that were killed on 9/11 don't have whole bodies. There's about 40% of people that are not there. And I met a family, the Trent family recently, Cantor Fitzgerald. They saw their father. The girl saw her father up at the window trying to figure out how to get out of the building. That's torture. Not we poured water on somebody. And she knows that he went down in that collapse of that building, and they never found anything. And that's very, very difficult. My mother had said if we don't find anything, we're going to go to St. Raymond Cemetery, and we're going to get a place to go, a crypt or a grave that we can go and at least have some place to go and remember. Like the roadsides all over New York City and Long Island, you see roadside flowers. That's a place to go. So it's commemorated that way.
So what would you like if they asked you, what would you like us to do? What would you really like the government to do?
I'd like the government to humanely execute these guys. Not only the five high-value detainees connected with 9/11, they also have the Cole family down there, al-Nashiri, who is a Saudi, and they refer to him as the Marine wing of Al-Qaeda, who blew up the USS Cole in Yemen in the harbor there. Those families are still looking for justice also, and we trade courtroom time with them. That if we're not there, they are there. They just built another courtroom down in Gitmo, so they're going to run these trials now concurrently. We'll see what happens. As far as Guantanamo goes, a lot has been said about it, and I know that they sent these migrants there, and the migrants they probably never had it so good. They're living in air-conditioned cinder block with cots. I mean, they keep them on the other side of the base. People are treated down there well. It's not Devil's Island, and people seem to think so, but it isn't. That was a U.S. Navy base, given in lease to the United States government after the Spanish-American War for helping the Cubans kick the Spanish out. And we have paid rent for that base all the way up until when Castro came in power. And just last time I was there, I went to the North Gate, which is like the DMZ, and that is where the Marine commander explained to us that he meets with his Cuban counterpart, and that every month he shows up with a big valise full of money. They get a wet signature, and the United States government is still paying pensioners that worked for the U.S. government before the revolution. So we're still paying pension obligations to the Cubans that worked for the U.S. government in the 1960s. What a great country we live in.
The lease ran out many years ago.
No, they haven't cashed the checks. When Castro came in, the United States government does not recognize Castro. So they're still writing the checks. They're not cashed, but they're still abiding by the original agreement that we're leasing this base from you.
The movie A Few Good Men.
A Few Good Men, right. And they have up there on Marine Hill, they have Jack Nicholson's picture hanging right there with all the commanders. And they say, go see if you can pick them out. Yeah, they're very proud of that.
The 9/11 program, Mount Sinai, which you're well aware of. Now,
yes.
That's only in New York, correct?
I'm not sure. There are probably other locations around the country. I would imagine, Jeannie Kelly would be the one to ask. Yeah. Jeannie Kelly, the angel of post 9/11, as we refer to her.
We love Jeannie Kelly. We've had her on the show, good friend.
Absolutely. You know what? Her and John Field, the Feel Good Foundation, have made it a point. They lobby Congress to get this going and to pay. We're never going to, I don't believe they're ever going to put a number on the amounts of deaths from 9/11. People, every able-bodied person in this country wanted to come to New York to help, and that's what they did. And who knows what exposure to what toxins they took back with them, and all of a sudden, so many years later, that they're diagnosed with some kind of crazy cancer. And I don't know if they know it. Like John Field says, I'm not worried about people gaming the system. I know they're going to do it. It's the people that don't know that they got cancer from being in New York. Those are the people I'm concerned about. So they have to keep this going. The United States government, it would have been easier just to get a FISA warrant and look at Zacarias Moussaoui's computer in August of 2001 until afterwards have to pay for everybody that got sick and died.
It's crazy, but you're right. People came from Alabama. We talk about this all the time on this podcast. People came from, first responders, even civilians came from Alabama, wherever.
All over.
Went back home after being here 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Later on, he gets sick, die of some type of cancer or blood disorder.
And
not even aware of any benefits
not
that
even aware of
possibly their families could even have.
Yeah, and you know what? 9/11 is like you're dropping a pebble in the water and the ripples are going out 300-400 yards, and that includes this whole country. The young people that joined the military after 9/11, I see them down in Gitmo. They all have their little ghost stories from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they tell me, we joined because of your loss. And to hear that from the military is humbling. I'm humbled by the whole thing, the response from the police department, the military, and what I always say is that everybody's got a job to do in regards to 9/11, and my job is to see this through on the justice side. And I just hope that these guys don't become a national security issue, being held in a prison through a plea deal. I would like to put this behind me. I would like to put this behind me, and when that's going to happen, I don't know. So I'm supposed to go back to Gitmo for the 12th time in July. And Cuba in July is not such a bad place to be. You ever been worse than New York? I mean, New York is worse with the hot, sticky.
Yeah.
It's the breeze. It's the humidity that gets you up here. Down there, it's...
I went to Cuba with a license with a group, and we went to the southern part of Cuba, and the bus driver wanted everybody to see the memorial, the Bay of Pigs. They're very proud of the Bay of Pigs.
Oh, yeah, right.
I refused to get off the bus. I was the only one staying.
Because you're a patriot, that's why, and you know.
Staying on the bus. But another thing I wanted to ask you, Peter King was very instrumental.
Love Peter King.
In getting the just awards that people needed. Have you been involved with him?
I've met him a few times, and I had asked him once, as a congressman, would you introduce legislation banning Sharia law at a federal level? And he said to me, you know what, I can't do that because it'll just open up a whole can of worms about religious freedoms. And I thought, oh my, that we are really in serious hot water if we can't put civil law ahead of religious law in this country. It's not like, the Ten Commandments is a pretty good blueprint for behavior, and I go by that.
Well, I think this was a terrific interview, and I think
I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.
You're a very special person.
I don't know about that. I'm just doing what anybody else would do if they lost a loved one because of terrorism.
Well, you're doing more than many others. And what was very touching is the fact that you were a twin, and you told me earlier that you felt something.
I'll never be able to say I didn't feel it is more realistic, because when that tower came down and I had this big burst of anxiety, there was no way of me knowing what was happening at the same time, and that's when John was killed in the collapse of the North Tower. So that's why I say that. I'll never be able to say I didn't feel it. And people will say, you're full of it. I said, you know what? Sorry to put it, but I'll never be able to say I didn't feel it. Twins, a little-known group and not too much studies done upon the interconnection with siblings. And, I'm also, the 10th anniversary, the BBC did Twins of the Twin Tower documentary. I don't know how they got my name, but I ended up talking to them about it. And the other twins, identical twins, told me, there's no difference between fraternal twins and identical twins. It's all about utero bonding. When you were there with your brother in the womb, even though you weren't identical, you were still there together. And then I said, well, he took all the food, and that's like I got everything. Sometimes I say I introduce myself as his genetic waste. But anyway, you have to make it entertaining because, typical police humor, if you don't, boy, you're just going to drown in sorrow.
So Dan, now, anything you'd like to mention to our audience that we haven't gone over, or maybe we should have touched on?
Just don't forget 9/11. I mean, don't forget all the people. And, it's good every now and then to look back at these documentaries that they run on September 11th to realize the horror. Time has diminished everybody's senses when it comes to this. And to recount those people that were trapped that couldn't get out, those people that were at risk waters where the doors were closed to get to the roof. They couldn't do a helicopter rescue. And the people that were killed down on the ground. And also not only here, but 9/11 is also Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. And sometimes they don't get enough play because of the loss of life was nothing here. There's actually a book out there that I would encourage people to get an Audible of, which is called The Only Plane in the Sky. And it talks about George Bush being down in Florida and how the whole thing unfolded on Air Force One. And what they do is they cover every site. The woman that was in the Arlington hospital getting ready to give birth to a baby when everybody else comes running in and she gets pushed aside, and how she felt. Or kids that were too young to understand what happened but knew that all the parents were upset. This book, The Only Plane in the Sky, very good book to read to get a comprehensive understanding of what went on all at the same time.
You know, Dan gave me a pamphlet here of your brother. His memorial mass on November 10th, 2001. John DeLaura, Emergency Service Truck Unit Number 2.
Truck 2.
St. Aidan's Church in Pearl River, New York.
St. Aidan's.
And it was on November 10th, 2001.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this.
And I'll tell you, if you know Pearl River, there's St. Aidan's and St. Margaret's. And at St. Margaret's was our friend Vinnie Princiato, who we grew up with. Was a fireman that was killed. On both sides of Pearl River that day at both churches, there was a police memorial going on and also a fire funeral. And the Princiato family I'm still in touch with. We went to St. Lucy's School with them. And, this is another thing that people that I knew before 9/11, my friend Mary Jane, her brother Jimmy was the head of security, Jimmy Waring, up at Cantor Fitzgerald. Those are special people to me now. People that I knew before 9/11 that all of a sudden, like I say, I got the friends, family, and neighborhood package on 9/11. Those people are very special to me. And the subsequent friends that I've met after 9/11, the 9/11 community.
Cap?
I don't think there's any more to say about all this. This has been a fascinating interview.
You want to go for another hour?
Well, we'd love to have you back. We'd love to have you back.
You know what? Let's see what happens with this trial and the outcome of the Saudi proceeding and the Guantanamo trial, because I'm sure I'll have a lot to say after that as well. I want to put this, all of us, we want to put this behind us. I mean, it's just how many years the U.S. government has not been able to prosecute these guys because of what was done to them? Nothing lethal. It doesn't seem like. I've seen the psychologists that ran these programs say, we knew where the line was. We stood up, put our toes up to that line and leaned forward. That they knew what they were doing. This is not like something out of the movies where hydraulic tools were used on someone. They did this with a lot of care, with psychologists standing by, with EMS and doctors standing by. So you want to characterize it as torture. The word torture makes money for defense attorneys. And that's why torture, 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 torture. That's all we hear. And these guys, these psychologists, don't use the word torture in front of us. We had no intention of torturing anybody. We needed to know what was going on. We were surprised, attacked, and lost a lot of people. So people blame George Bush. I don't blame the President of the United States. As I said to him when I met him, do what you got to do. And he did it.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. Dan, do you go down to the police memorial in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely. Been down there. Every time I'm in D.C., I'll go down there and look at my brother's name. That's a great in Judiciary Square down in D.C. Yes. It's a great place to go to. Police Day will be coming up May 15th. Yep. They will have all of these families that have lost police officers in the line of duty from the year before. I'm sure Stephanie Diller will be down there. And, talking about her, I also have to talk about Albert Mora and Rivera, the two cops.
3-2 precinct, right.
3-2 precinct. That was horrendous. And those families...
Shame.
And then, also Wen Zhenlu and Rafael Ramos. Yeah. I mean, you can go back. The line of duty people, it's just one after the other. Yeah. We call it the Blue Family, a club that no one wants to belong to.
Yeah, Eddie Burns.
Eddie Burns, his parents, wonderful people. And, Mrs. Vendetti. Got a lot of insight from Mrs. Vendetti. Jackie Hodge, who Sean Carrington's mother. The people that are part of the survivor of the Shields, the New York Shields, Reverend Kalajian. How can I talk about that without talking about Reverend Kalajian, a real Christian warrior, if there's any.
Sergeant Keith Levine, who I was a cop with.
Yes.
Was killed in the line of duty, off duty, but in the line of duty on 57th Street. Cap?
I have one last question. The survivors of the Shield, do they get contributions?
I would certainly hope they get a lot of contributions. Right now, Kathy Vigiano is the president of the Survivors of the Shield. And she's a firm president, very competent. And I don't know what their inner financial workings are, But there's a little disparity here that the older widows were paid back when money was different. Now, those widows need compensation. So I think that they work with the older widows also to try and give them something, because the scale was different back then. Somebody that died in the 1960s, a widow, is not going to get paid what someone got paid in the 2015 or 2020. So, yeah, it's there's a lot of us, and it goes back. If you look up the police murder and the history of police, there's a lot of us. There's a lot. We're all out there. I mean, we're out there.
How would people contribute? Do you have a?
You know what? I would have to say probably through the computer. You can look up Survivor of Shields. You can mail a check to One Police Plaza in care of Survivor of the Shields, and it's a good thing to do. If you want to make a donation, you can certainly make it to in New York. Yeah, there's a lot of different organizations, but I would have to say Survivor of the Shields for the widows. I make a distinction as a 9/11 family member. I'm not a 9/11 dependent. I'm a survivor of the Shield, but I'm not a survivor of the Shield dependent. And those are the widows and children. And when they lose their husband, they lose their income. And you hear about these crazy lawsuits where they give some criminal millions of dollars. But I'm not sure what the scale is, the National Law Enforcement Endowment is, but I only think it's a few $100,000.
Yeah. Well, people donate to the widows and children of the DEA, the widows and children as well.
Yeah.
Which now is pretty much all the widows and children.
Yeah, PBA. PBA.
Right.
Yeah, that's how they disperse the money. Through the ranks, the Sergeant Benevolent Association, the PBA. But
right.
I'm not specifically sure. Because the Survivor of the Shields, it encompasses all the different ranks.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of.
Actually, I'm going to have to ask Kathy because.
We'll have to have Kathy on because we know.
To have Kathy on. Definitely have Kathy on.
Kathy on. She answers all our questions, and we'll bring Jeannie Kelly on again. It's great to have you and Kathy and Jeannie Kelly.
They're above my pay grade.
But Cap, last word.
I've said enough.
I know you did. You sure do. You always do. Dan, anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it. Just that being conscripted, and that's what I say, conscripted into line of duty, conscripted into 9/11. I like to think that I'm continuing my brother's life-saving effort when I'm advocating for police families or 9/11 families. So he was there to save people, and maybe in my small way that I can support those people that are left behind that he was trying to save.
Well, Dan, thank you for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Keep doing God's work.
I have to thank Al Baker. This was Al Baker's idea.
Exactly.
Al Baker, touchdown maker.
Yep. He spoke to me at the Holy Name on Sunday, and we were supposed to connect that day, but we're here today. Yeah. So that's great.
$100 for eggs. I love that breakfast.
Exactly.
Cold coffee.
Yes, and may John rest in peace. And John is a true hero, John DeLora. And thank you again, Dan. I appreciate everything for you being here. Everyone, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to Cop Talk. You can also follow us on X at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, God bless you. God bless America. God bless law enforcement throughout the world. And God bless our U.S. military. Cap?
And you can see our great guest on YouTube.
YouTube, yes. Everything's on YouTube. I'm glad they didn't have this when I was a kid.
Thank you again to the DeLora family. And until next time, be safe.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.